Welcome to Sunrise Life, the podcast where we have deep conversations with fellow models. And today I have Benny Nikole on the line. Say hello.
Hey.
I'm so happy that you had the time to do this with me today. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be on here.
Yeah, heck yeah. So I've known you for a while because we're both from Seattle. And I've always thought that you have been really professional, but also super friendly. So thank you for that.
Oh gosh, that's nice. I feel the same about you, honestly.
Aww.
I remember when I first started modeling, reaching out to you for some advice and guidance, and you were always so open. I was really impressed by that. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. And now you're also really great with your photography and you're into it and you have a studio and what else do you do?
Yeah. I do hair, makeup, photography, and modeling. Yeah. So I've got a studio here in Seattle that it's like a one-stop shop, people can come and get their hair and makeup done and get photos, or photographers can come work with me. Yeah. Kind of like I said, one-stop shop. I'm trying to do it all.
That's awesome. So out of all of those skills, the photography, makeup, hair, and the modeling, which of those did you start first?
Professionally, I started with makeup artistry first. I started doing makeup right out of high school and working in retail, like Macy's, Nordstrom kind of stuff, and building up a kit. And then from there, I started working on photo sets a lot. I just love being on a set. I did do some modeling in high school for friends in a photography class, and originally I wanted to be an actress, so I just love being in front of a camera. But yeah, kind of being on set with makeup, I started moving in front of the camera for photo shoots sometimes and building up a portfolio, and then started modeling, which led to photography.
Oh, so the modeling came first and then you got into the photography.
Yeah.
Oh.
Modeling seems to build a lot of community and connections. So working with photographers so much, I'm fortunate that some photographers have gifted me gear because photography is not a cheap thing to learn. So yeah, I was able to get some hand-me-down cameras and lenses and start really practicing.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, I feel really lucky.
Yeah. So with all this, and a lot of the people that are on the show, are also comfortable with nude modeling. Were you exposed to that before you started modeling, when you were doing makeup and hair?
I've done hair and makeup for boudoir shoots before, but I just like to be nude as a person. I'm very comfortable with nudity. And I remember when I was modeling not professionally, when I was just 18 and just wanted cool pictures. I remember I did this boudoir photo shoot and I loved the photos so much. And I loved being in the camera in that way. And I felt with my body type, it was really a door to actually being able to model professionally, because I was definitely not going to be on the runway at that time. I'm 5'2" and, kind of curvier. So yeah, but I had a series of jealous boyfriends who were very much not into the idea of me doing even boudoir shoots. And I remember in 2015, I was with my now husband and I was showing him some of those boudoir photos that I had done years ago. And I had seen, nude modeling and lingerie modeling before, honestly, just on, Instagram and Model Mayhem and stuff, kind of seeing artful modeling in that way. And I told him that I thought I might be good at that. And he was so supportive.
Aww.
And just yeah, you totally would be good at that. You should do it. I'm really? You wouldn't be jealous or worried? And he's like, no, I trust you. So I dove right in. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And this is a topic that actually doesn't get brought up that often on the show. I haven't really gone down the rabbit hole on supportive or unsupportive boyfriends. So yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I kind of went through similar with when I was first getting into modeling, ages like 18 through 21, I had boyfriends that sometimes they would say they liked the photos, but then would always get like passive aggressive or jealous or like say that they didn't want the photos on the internet and stuff like that. Like
Totally.
what happened with you with all that?
Yeah, honestly, like back in the day when I had first done that shoot, it was more just like boyfriends saying, I don't want you in that position with photographers. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't want you to share it with anyone else. But when I got with my now husband, him encouraging it honestly completely changed my life because I have always loved, like I did self-portraits before I even had anywhere to post them, like I just love posing and being in front of the camera. I was obsessed with America's Next Top Model. Like I've always wanted to do it. So I feel like I actually kind of had some like core skills going into it. And once he kind of encouraged it, I actually also called my mom and I asked her how she would feel if I did nude modeling.
Ooh.
And she was also really supportive. She was like, yeah, I mean, I think trust you to make good decisions and be safe and all of that. So yeah, if you want to do it, do it. And so I did. And it honestly, when I first started out, my first paid gig was a very low hourly rate, but I didn't have a portfolio at the time. And the photographer that I worked with would hire me for 4 hours, like every week, like once a week for like, honestly, like a month or two. And we would take pictures and then we would load them into the computer and show me. And then anything I didn't like, we'd go back and I could do it better. So it was a really good learning experience for me. And then from there, once I really had a portfolio and started working more, I was able to, slowly raise my rates. And then I started traveling and I didn't grow up traveling. So this was like such an incredible opportunity for me to just see, like I got to go to New York for the first time because of modeling and I'd always wanted to. I got to I go to San Francisco a lot now where my sisters actually live. So I like started building more of a relationship with my sisters who I didn't really grow up with. So like that was really cool. It became my full-time job within a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it honestly just completely changed my life. Like I'm so thankful and I really like give a lot of credit to my husband for it's amazing what a supportive relationship can do. It's so nuts to think about.
That's amazing. And I hope that people out there that are thinking about getting into modeling, that are in relationships with like controlling or jealous boyfriends, can hear that and be like, "Oh, I just need a more supportive significant other." Because that is,
Absolutely.
I mean, outside of just modeling, like anything, right? Like if you're not supportive of your partner, then like what are you even doing? Like that's a really good example.
Honestly. And sometimes you don't even realize it until you're out of it. Like when you're in it, you're like, oh, I can see why, he wouldn't want me to go post nude with another like male photographer or something. And it does, because you can like justify it almost.
Yeah.
But then once you're out of it, you're like, wait a minute, like I trust myself. I don't know. It's like an interesting perspective once you're out of it and you
Yeah.
realize how much you were kind of held back in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, when I think about it, I can understand how if somebody isn't exposed to the industry at all, that they would not be sure about it, you know? I mean, like, even thinking about it now, I can understand how some significant others might think like that, but I think just like giving your partner a chance to explore the things that they want to get into, like nude modeling or whatever, like it could be a touchy subject for some people, but I think it's important to allow people to do things that they're compelled to do because like you said, you just loved posing. We're like compelled to do it. And if somebody's stopping you from something that gives you joy, like, that's not cool.
Absolutely. I think that this podcast is really cool because there's not a lot of like insight into our industry. It's such a weird industry to try to explain to people. Like there's not a lot of content out there about it or like talking about it and that it is a job. Like this is a professional exchange. You know what I mean? We're not just like going to random dudes' houses and you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's sort of, I'm excited to see that it's becoming more and more mainstream and accepted because I feel like in the past it sounds weirder. You know what I mean? Or it sounded more strange. And now I feel like there's more evidence that this is a job and a profession and a professional
Absolutely.
community.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking about a few different things, like kind of centered around this topic. One being that whenever a person is saying that they're a professional traveling freelance model and they're like not anywhere close to agency standards, there's still a lot of people out there that are like, no, you're not a real model, whatever. Or you'll have people that say, well, oh, models are flaky, like you don't deserve to get paid because my gear costs so much or whatever. And you know, I can see why people say that kind of stuff, but still they're not recognizing that what this niche community of professional freelance models actually brings to the table. And those people, especially those photographers that say that stuff, will never understand it if they're only working with TFP local models. If they've never hired a professional model, they'll never know what the benefit of working with a professional model is.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another reason that like this kind of content is so great and important because of course there are, non-professional models that are, now even charging professional model rates because Instagram has made that more
Yeah.
confusing, I feel like, for people.
Yeah.
And that can kind of leave like a bad impression on a lot of photographers. But obviously there's a big difference, as you and I know. And like the
Mm-hmm.
more, things like this kind of help show
Yeah.
that this is a job.
It also, something about the photographer community that I find a little bit sad compared to how the model community is developing right now is that us models now are mostly reaching out to each other. We're all on these Facebook groups and Instagram group chats where like we're actually communicating with each other and giving each other advice, or at least providing references about photographers that we've worked with to keep each other safe and informed. And I've talked to a lot of photographers and I'm like, do you guys check references before you have a model come over to your house? Like, how do you, like, if you're not really like great with getting a vibe just by looking at somebody's portfolio and getting an idea about who they are based on what they write in their captions or in their bio, like, I hear a lot of photographers telling stories about models who showed up with like multiple people and like bad stuff happened at their place because they just like didn't do any kind of background check. And that kind of stuff gives people who are responsible like us, like it just kind of taints the industry. But the point is that a lot of photographers, they're not pulling together on private Facebook groups to vet who to hire and stuff, but we models are definitely communicating to vet and like background check people before we go to their studio.
For sure. Yeah, that's why like I really like things like verified credits.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I always recommend that people check those out. But yeah, it's funny. I kind of feel like as models, like we're almost coworkers, like it is like a community. Like we all kind of, especially like those of us who have been doing it for quite a while, like I feel like we all kind of know each other, if not in person, like from the internet and have communicated. And yeah, it really is a community. And I agree. I wish that photographers did the same.
Yeah. And I did want to define verified credits for, apparently there's a lot of people out there that don't use Model Mayhem at all because it's not as popular as it used to be. But
Sure.
verified credits, for anybody listening who doesn't know what that is basically a feature of Model Mayhem where when after you've worked with somebody, they can leave basically a review or a comment on your profile. And the person that you're leaving a comment for gets to approve or deny that comment. And if they approve it, it becomes a verified credit, which is basically like the Yelp reviews of modeling and photography. So The only downside is that Model Mayhem doesn't allow people to say anything negative on the verified credits. The only time you could say anything negative about anyone is on your main profile page. You could say, I don't recommend XYZ photographers.
Yeah, I think that Model Mayhem has a lot of improving to do for sure.
Yeah.
I never I don't update my portfolio there as often because you have to resize your images to the weirdest, smallest size.
Oh my God.
So frustrating. But yes, that one feature, although you can't say something negative, it is great just to see, like, especially for models. Like, you can see if a model has, 50 positive reviews, like,
Yeah.
she's probably a professional.
Right, exactly. Having more of those verified credits does make you look trustworthy because so many people were willing to approve your positive comment. So yeah, if only Model Mayhem didn't shoot themselves in the foot with, like, they started charging for stuff that used to be free, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
8 or years ago or something like that, and then a bunch of people jumped ship. So womp
Yeah.
womp. But anyway, yeah, I mean, now it is a lot harder to book tours because now we have to just, like, fish around on various social media platforms.
Yeah, for sure. I'm planning my first in quite a while, actually, coming up this month, and it has been interesting. I'm like reminded of all these challenges that are so annoying.
Yeah.
A lot of wasted time.
Oh man, tell me about it. So, where are you traveling to? San Francisco again?
I'm going to start in Phoenix, and then I'm going from Phoenix to LA, and then I'm going from LA to San Francisco.
Wow, are you
So
flying or driving?
I'm going to fly to Phoenix, and then I'm flying from Phoenix to LA, and then we'll be driving from LA to San Francisco.
Oh wow, cool.
And might stop in Santa Barbara on the way. We'll see.
That sounds like it might be a long trip. How long is that?
From LA to San Francisco is like 6 hours, I think.
I mean the whole
6 or 7.
Like, is it a multiple week tour? Or?
No, it's good. Well, yeah, I guess I get it. It's from the 7th to the 20th, I think. I haven't gotten my ticket back yet.
Oh, okay.
I need to, but I think I'll be there until the 20th. So yeah, it is a little bit long.
Wow.
But I haven't traveled in like a hot minute because I've been so busy with the studio, and so I'm kind of like cramming it all into one quick.
Wow.
Yeah, almost 2 weeks.
That's 2 weeks I feel is a long time to do a tour like that. I used to do 2 week long tours, and by the 9th or 10th day, I was just like wanting to die.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons I haven't purchased my ticket home yet. Is I'm like, maybe I'm gonna want to come home on the 18th. Like, we'll see. But
Okay, that's
I'm definitely just trying to get a bunch of work done at once.
cool. So tell me more about
Yeah.
your photography and what kind of stuff you shoot.
Yeah, I shoot a lot of things. I like to describe myself as a portrait photographer primarily. My favorite thing is to have like people, I actually love photographing people who don't like having their photo taken. So I like to have people come into the studio, and ideally I do their hair and makeup if they'd like that. And then I kind of customize the shoot around their needs, So everyone needs photos now. So whether it be like a professional kind of photo shoot or just, photos of them just looking good for like a dating website or, whatever reason, that's really that's where my heart is with photography. And then I also, as you know, will work with, like models and people who do like to have their photo taken on creative shoots. So lately I've been working with a lot of musicians.
Oh, cool.
And doing just like getting weird in the studio,
Yeah.
doing like fun lighting and stuff like that. And that's really great too.
Good times. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to start doing more with like new models. So having like people who want to kind of enter this industry come to the studio and ideally again do their hair and makeup, and then a photo shoot with like some posing coaching, kind of like what that first photographer did for me, like showing them on the camera how different movements photograph, and getting like kind of a beginning of a portfolio for new models too is something that I'm starting to focus more on and offer on my website.
That's cool. So you want to give back to the community kind of in the same way that people gave to you when you started.
For sure. Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of like positive energy and passion around everything that is creative that you're doing.
I do. Yeah. I love it. Sometimes it's like, sounds like I do too many things with the hair and makeup and like photography and modeling, but it does all come together with the studio space, especially, like it's like it all fits.
I imagine you probably have to do a lot of marketing because you have so many different like things that you do. Am I right on that?
I do. I honestly, during this like traveling time when I'm not on a shoot, I'm really going to be hyper focused on my websites and making my marketing more consistent and kind of like streamlining everything and having FAQs that answer people's questions so I don't have to email back and forth so much. But yeah, I do have to, and I need to get better at it as well.
Oh man, don't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like you're pretty busy with all these different things too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been staying busy for sure. It's one of those, I'm like a big believer that like 100 people who hire you regularly, who you have a good relationship with, is better to me than working with or trying to reach thousands and thousands of people and like having like, like one-off photo shoots here. You know what I mean? Like I like having like a consistent community of people who I can work with again and again. So that's a big part of my business here in Seattle is like kind of being the best of where I am with like at least like hair and makeup and you know what I mean? So I have a lot of return
Awesome.
clients for sure.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And that's probably like the way to be as an independent person, like that's not a corporation. That it's more fulfilling that way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
I want to take a short little break to tell you about Model Society. ModelSociety.com is a website dedicated to featuring figurative fine art photography for models and photographers. What makes them different than other portfolio hosting websites is that some of those other websites will still host kind of tacky photography or exploitative photos. Model Society screens all of their contributors for quality and authenticity. So you only get the best of the best on there. If you're not a photographer or model, you can still enjoy and appreciate Model Society because they also have newsletters and magazines featuring their best work and new articles each week. Check it out, modelsociety.com. I will also include a link to Model Society in the show notes. All right, now back to our show.
So I have this part of my podcast that I call the photo shoot fail of the week. And it's an opportunity for you to tell a crazy story of something that's happened over the course of your career. It could be crazy funny, crazy good, crazy bad. What's one of your crazy photo shoot stories?
Oh man, I have a few for this one.
One if you want.
Oh man. Well, one of the craziest ones, I think about this one a lot because it was really like kind of toward the beginning of my modeling career, but I got hired by a photographer who I really like. I will say that this photographer is great, but he was just learning photography and he had hired another photographer who was his portfolio was really great. I will say that like his work was really good. So this kind of, I'll call him just like a fancy pants photographer was mentoring this other photographer, and the other photographer hired me to pose for this like mentoring session basically. So I get there and it's at this like hotel thing downtown, and there are a couple other models there. And when I meet the like fancy pants photographer, I immediately don't like him. Like it's just one of those like, this is not my kind of photographer. I saw the way that he was talking to the other model who was young. Like she was definitely like 18. And I at the time like, 25, 26. And he was trying to manage her, one of those photographers turned managers, giving her that kind of advice. Yeah, so I'm already like, I did not like this guy. And we're doing this shoot and they have this idea to go to the roof. We have roof access of this building. And we get up there and he's having the other model pose on the ledge of this roof. And we are 18 stories high in downtown Seattle. Oh my gosh, the way she was posing was terrifying to me. It was so scary. But again, I will say, with as much as I did not like this photographer, his work was really good, unfortunately. So when it was my turn, I'm so scared, but I do decide to go and pose, but I won't let go of this gate thing that's on the rooftop, right. So there's a gate and then a little bit of ledge. So I'm on the outside of the ledge, but I won't let go of the gate. So I'm posing, but probably not very well. But I do have one photo from this photo shoot because that's all I got out of it. And when I look at it, it terrifies me. And looking back, because I'm so high up, and looking back, I don't think that that's something I would ever do now. And I don't think you have to be careful with your safety in these modeling scenarios. And that was kind of a lapse in judgment, given that I don't think that this photographer was really concerned with our safety at all. But it is a cool picture, I'm not going to lie. So I do have that one thing, but I don't recommend it. I do not recommend things like that for new models. And it really reminds me that I feel like I was lucky that nothing happened on that shoot,
Yeah.
And the fancy pants photographer got canceled later for being a creep. So I was right.
Really? Well, after the podcast, so I'm going to ask who that was.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I will happily tell you. Anyways, that one's kind of mixed feelings, but it's definitely, it was crazy. That's the best way I can describe it, is crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, especially because the other model did it, if there's this big ego guy, that you don't want to be the one that's going to be well, I don't want to do it, just because in the moment, sometimes even though you know that something makes you uncomfortable, it's hard to say no sometimes.
Totally. And it was like I said, that was in the beginning of my modeling career. But yeah, it's a moment that I think about a lot. When I think about it now, I'm oh, I would never do it now. It was just sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then, and it also
go ahead.
It's a trust your gut moment, trust your gut. I had a bad feeling about that guy. It came out later that I was right. Just, yeah, be safe out there.
Yeah. No photo shoot's worth dying over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm trying to think. I mean, there have definitely been things where, I had an idea that was risky that I wanted to do, but I was confident in doing it. And then there have been other things that, somebody suggests I do, and I'm yeah, I don't feel comfortable with that. For me, lately, a lot of it is standing on, an overhang where it looks like the rocks are possibly about to topple over, you know what I mean, on a cliff and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that kind of stuff happens to me frequently. I've been doing a lot of outdoor stuff in the desert, and the only time that I'm really comfortable with it is if the photographer goes and stands on it first to prove that it can
for sure
hold me. And then I'm fine, but I don't want the photographer to die either, and I would feel bad if it did break,
Yeah, that's another reason that I working with the same people consistently. I feel like if you feel really safe with a photographer, then it's easier to kind of push boundaries more and create more dynamic or daring things. But you have to really feel good about the people that you're with, and feel like they also care about your safety, not just you. I mean, you should care about your own, obviously, but yeah.
Safety, honestly, safety first. It's the most important element in what we do. And it's like we were talking earlier, it's one of the main reasons why our loved ones sometimes don't want us to do freelance modeling, because they're worried about our safety. So the safety Facebook groups that are out there, they're all there for a reason. We're just trying to not die.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, community definitely helps with that, though, and checking references and, yeah.
I remember a few years ago, there was a GoFundMe that somebody had because a photographer that they worked with wanted to do something with fire and lighter fluid. They had some creative idea involving fire
Oh my
and
gosh.
squirting lighter fluid behind the model to make the flames like get bigger behind her. And fire got all over her legs and gave her like severe burns all over her legs, and she needed to get skin grafts for a photo shoot.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so scary. Oh,
Yeah.
that's heartbreaking, actually. That's horrible.
Yeah. So
Ugh.
stuff like that, you know, train tracks, like when people come up with ideas, we're like, this is going to be so cool. Sometimes I'm like, I'm sure that it's going to be fine and that I'm going to survive, but like, I don't want to do a shoot where I'm, you know, pointing a gun straight at the camera or, you know, posing on the train tracks just because it promotes a lack of safety.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy the ideas that people come up with and like have no idea what goes into it to keep it safe. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I know that it's like art is supposed to like make the viewer feel something, and so people come up with ideas that are like shocking. They're like, oh, this is going to be impactful. But like, I think over time, just modeling for such a long time and being subjected to all these dangerous ideas and then finding out about models that died or had to go to the hospital because of somebody's, it just makes me want to like, you know, be extra safe. Maybe I'm getting old.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things like looking back, I'm sure you can think of a lot of scenarios, and I can think of a lot of scenarios that it's like, oh, I don't know that I would do that now. You know what I mean? Or like, yeah, it's sort of even like those like bondage, like fetish things.
Yeah.
Like, I like the way ties look, but it is like when people are hanging from things, like you have to be with a professional, you know, like
Oh,
don't do
yeah.
that with just anybody. It's super dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Just that's another thing. Like with my studio, I like to, so I don't share it with just anybody. I do let photographers rent it that either I have worked with or if I know the model and the model has worked with them before. But part of that is that I really want it to be like a safe space. Like if you are working in my studio, you are safe. You know, like that's one of the reasons I don't advertise it openly. Like I don't want just anybody to be able to work here and yeah, I
Great.
vet everyone.
That's
Yeah.
great. I mean, yeah, like that's your sacred space. If somebody were to, you know, mess with that, then that would be harmful for you. So I fully understand.
Yeah, for sure.
It does make me think
Models
about,
need that too.
yeah, I mean, there have been times in my life where I've thought about like, you know, getting a living space that has a studio. And every time I've gotten like serious about thinking about that, I'm like, well, what about my safety? Like, am I going to be renting it to the public? Like, they're going to know that I have gear here. Like, I might get broken into. It's a fear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another reason I don't share it with everybody. And it's also like I thought about doing like a shared studio type thing, but I'm really like particular about like I actually like interior design stuff. So like I want to be in control of all the paint colors and things like that. And like even like other photographers, I would want them to be as cautious as I am with who comes into the space. So I have opted just to have it all my own, except who I rent it to. But yeah, it's been the best thing for me and my peace of mind.
That's perfect.
It's
Like,
expensive, but it's worth it.
yeah, that's great. I think everything you're
Yeah.
describing sounds like a good way to have like a ethical, slow growth of like a strong and safe business.
Yeah. Thanks. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, I think that's a good example for anybody else out there that's thinking about, you know, kind of following in footsteps like that is just, you know, safety first and, you know, connection over mass audience for sure.
Yeah. And you can like reach out. That's the other thing that I've always been impressed by with the modeling community is you can really reach out to check references to like any model, no matter what like their huge followings are. A lot of the times you'll get responses from people that you wouldn't think you would, you know? Not saying all models like read their Instagram messages, but a lot of the times you can ask. Like I feel like I worry that these other like models just starting out are like scared to ask or check references, you know? And I
Yeah.
hope that they know that they can reach out.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And back when I started modeling, it wasn't like that. Obviously, social media was not really a thing. Because I started modeling in like 2006, and like there was no Facebook, you know, there was like MySpace, but there
Yeah.
wasn't a community. And for a while, like the models who would give each other advice were only the professional models. And it seems like in the last few years, especially, reaching out to newer models is finally like becoming more of a thing where, because when you're first starting out, you're the most vulnerable, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's not enough resources for not just new models, but even like new photographers. Like I've had photographers hire me that say, "Oh, I saw your work years ago and like wanted to build up more of a portfolio before I
Oh,
even reached out." I'm like, I love working with brand new photographers, you know?
yeah.
And I think that's like the other part, like I want my studio to be a place that like new photographers can come and like learn how to work with a model in the appropriate way. And,
Yes.
like even like learn angles and like I can help, like that's,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I love if somebody's coming into photography with a I want to learn like mindset, like that's just great. Like what we don't want is somebody thinking that they are the hot shit and they can like, you know, bully you around into doing stuff that you're not comfortable with. Like nobody wants that. Like
yeah.
I think if you're nice
Throw you
and
on a rooftop.
right, yeah. Yeah, all those stuff like that.
No, you're right. You're totally right. Like people who want to learn, it's so great.
Yeah.
Just don't be afraid to reach out. I try to make that clear too.
So I have another part of my podcast that I call the Rising Phoenix era of your life. Can you describe the situation, and it could be related to your modeling or not, just whatever you want to bring up, where you were faced with some kind of a challenge that you had to overcome?
Yeah. I mean, well, modeling in general, overcoming being 5'2" and not stick thin. But honestly, the biggest one is probably like during COVID, everything shutting down, like we really could not work. And then that's right when I actually got the studio. So
Oh,
I got it in, yeah, like end of 2020 and 2021. And yeah, it was sort of this time where everything totally shifted because prior to that, I was traveling a lot and doing like the traveling model hustle for sure and doing, makeup jobs in Seattle and all that. But yeah, that shifted everything. So like not being able to work had me like refocus and this space became available. I had my eye on this space forever. I've always wanted it. And obviously it became available at like the worst possible time to
oh,
start a business. But I just thought like I thought I could do it, like if I negotiated my first month free. So I had like 1 month to like paint and plan and like get stuff together. But before I committed to it, I remember, being unsure and talking to my very supportive again husband and he did something, he called it breaking it down to the ridiculous. So he like did the amount of rent for the studio and then divided it by, how many days in a month. And he's like, can you make this much a day? And it was like, not very much. I was like, yeah, I could definitely do that. And so encouraged me to go for it. And I did. And it was really scary, but it's another thing like that totally changed life. Like it's a totally new chapter that has really like actually like more than doubled my income, like being able to like have a brick and mortar space instead of like just running around all the time, even though I love traveling and all of that. Yeah, I'm really thankful for it. It's like out of something, scary and all of that, taking that leap really, really has worked out so far.
that's awesome. And like there's a lot of people on the show that like getting into modeling and leaving their job or like starting a new like, you know, wing of their career. Like it's all like leaps of faith, and it is scary. Like every time you're like, oh, I'm gonna invest into some new tools of this new trade that I'm gonna get into. Like I don't know if it's gonna work out or not. Like like nobody knows if it's going to work out a lot. And even like doing photo shoots and posing nude, it's a huge risk because you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to make any money at this. Like, what if I can't get a job because I'm naked on the internet? Like, I think a lot of people have fears, and like it is inspiring listening to all of the people that have, brought up that they tried something and then it worked out and they were happy about it. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no reward without a little risk.
Yeah.
It's definitely, yeah. I'm really happy that we did it.
Yeah. So then you just budgeted out how many makeup and hair / photo gigs that you needed to do per month in order to make the studio work out. And I love that breaking down
Yeah.
that you're
Breaking it down to the ridiculousness. It's
Yeah.
so good. I think about it all the time now, actually. I'm like, okay, because it seems like so much and it's so easy to get overwhelmed. But, once we figured out that number, and it was like a reasonable number, I'm like, okay, so that's my goal. And so my goal has always been like, honestly, to at least, like, I just want to break even and like live my life making art and you know what I mean? And obviously like be able to like live comfortably or whatever. Like it's not about trying to get rich. It's about like being able to have this space and be a part of the community and all of that and pay my bills.
Amazing.
So it's definitely, yeah, I was able to like break even pretty quickly. But I will say, like having a studio, I always want, to buy furniture and to buy wardrobe things. And there's always more makeup to buy and more, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I have learned that I do need to make more than just breaking even to like really invest in it in the way that I want and be able to provide like the space that I dream of. And it's also a lot of like manual labor. Like when I'm not on shoots or doing hair and makeup, then I am painting or like, I don't know, really learning a lot about power drills.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually, but I'm really loving that part too. Like how to, I don't know. I just learned how to drill into concrete. I cannot tell you how much more difficult it is than you would think. I had to like get a bunch of different screwdrivers. Anyways, yeah, but then like figuring it out and now having that knowledge like makes me feel really good.
That's awesome.
I'm like, oh, I'm pretty handy now.
That's awesome. I mean, you're empowered, and that's so cool because it's more than just you take pictures or you model or you do hair and makeup, because you're doing all the behind the scenes work too.
Yeah, for sure. Which means there's always like, some chaos in the studio. Like it's not like I have a back room that you've seen it, you've been here. It's not always like as put together as I want. I have big dreams for that room and it's kind of always in progress because it is hard to do all this and, work at the same time. It takes a lot of time. But I also kind of like that because I feel like I can make a mess on shoots and I can just paint over it. You know what I mean? Like it's not perfect, but it's such a creative space for me and I just adore it.
I love that. That's awesome. And that's inspiring me to eventually aspire again to get a studio. I think my problem is I don't know where I would want to get it yet.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, you are always welcome to use mine.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll be in Seattle again. I'll be in Seattle for some of June and a lot of July, so let's do something.
Yeah, I'd love to see you.
That's awesome. Let's see. I had other questions that were like bubbling up as you were talking about all of that other stuff. So, oh yeah, this is one thing. Have you always done all of those tasks on your own, or have you ever had an assistant?
I do have an assistant that helps me with hair and makeup and helps me on photo shoots as well. She's really awesome. I wish that I could have her full time, but unfortunately I'm not there yet. That's another thing. I'd like to get to a point where I could really employ people. But yeah, right now I've just got her. Yeah, but that's definitely a dream for the future is to be able to hire. I do struggle with, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not delegating, but like maybe, I don't know. I struggle with like letting go of a lot of the process of anything really. Like I always have to like edit my own photos and I know a lot of people have like editors do it. What's the word I'm thinking of? Is it delegate?
I think it is delegate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I've always struggled with that. But I think it would be a good thing. It's something I'm working on, is getting better at that, and maybe, being able to hire other people to do things better than I would do it, and it actually probably would save money in the end, I have a lot of holes in the wall from me learning how to drill into concrete that would not be there if I had just hired someone.
Yeah, but then if you know how to do it, then you could do it next time.
Yeah, totally. It's a lot of mixed feelings there. But yeah, I just recently learned about TaskRabbit. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's like an app or something that you can hire people for just random jobs. They'll come put together furniture for you apparently, or hang shelves, and it's like freelance for them. So it's $35 an hour or something, and they can do stuff for you. Yeah.
I should check that out.
So maybe I'll do that. Yeah.
There are times that it's I just need this thing done and it's going to take 2 hours, but I don't have 2 hours out of my day to do it or whatever. That is,
right.
I can think of a task.
Yeah. Right. And it always feels good to support someone else's income or business or,
yeah.
I want to hire people more. I just struggle with it.
Yeah. I've gone back and forth personally. I have had people that I hired to edit this podcast, for example, but technology has gotten so good, creating shortcuts, that at this point now, the amount of time that it was taking me to send the audio file and then all of the typed out instructions with timestamps on where to add the sound effects and parts to cut out and cutting out the ums. Now, with the software that can just automatically detect every time somebody said, or if there was a long pause, it can do that in 2 clicks. And I'm well, that's the main thing that takes the longest when I'm editing a podcast. I don't really need to hire somebody to do that anymore if this software can do it for me. That I'm already paying for the software. So yeah, and this is one of those ethical AI things where it's this person that I used to pay to edit the podcast is no longer being hired by me because an AI tool can do it better than him. So, but it saves me money and I'm more efficient.
Yeah.
And so I guess some people benefit while other people need to adapt, I suppose.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky to navigate.
Yeah.
I have there's also the thing what if you don't like it? I have my sister-in-law is a graphic designer, and I really want a new logo for the studio, but I am terrified to hire her because what if I don't like it? So now I'm I don't know, trying to learn Adobe. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
cool.
It's it's scary to hire people, but also good. Lots of mixed feelings there.
Yeah, but it sounds like every time you need something done that you consider learning that task yourself instead of delegating it, which means that you have more and more skills so that in the future, maybe if you're not doing photography or modeling, you could possibly do drilling concrete holes or editing graphic design stuff for people. I don't know.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I'm going to turn into your local handyman.
Yeah, why not?
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah. I mean, you never know.
When I put
it's fun. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
It is fun. It can be fun. It sometimes be frustrating, but when you complete it successfully, then it's fun.
Right? It scratches a different itch, it's very physical, and then there's a physical thing that you can see that is done, and you don't have to look at a computer screen at all.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about how you look while you're doing it.
Yeah. No, I'm all about looking good for the camera and stuff, but I've learned not every day. I don't want to do my makeup every day.
No, and you shouldn't.
Yeah. It's good to have
I agree.
a couch day sometimes.
Yeah. I love it.
So what are some other goals that you have upcoming for the future, whether it's for your modeling or for your studio?
Yeah, I feel like it's most of my focus is definitely on the studio. I want it to be really like more of a community space. Like I want to offer everything that I offer still. And then I do want to, yeah, kind of start bringing people together in person here. I do see events for the future. And I do want it to be, I want to be making like 100% of my income from the studio. You know what I mean? Like I want it to be I still love travel modeling and all that. And I am looking forward to this trip, but I see for the future more like photographers would come to me from other states. You know what I mean? Because the studio would be that established. So it's kind of where all my focus is right now. And definitely, like I said, like helping newer models like that is definitely something that I'm really focused on right now, and new photographers as well.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
how frequently do you get a newer photographer?
Actually, really frequently. It's funny because they are newer photographers, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm getting the greatest photos out of it right away, which is totally fine with me. I never expect photos when I'm getting paid, which is something that newer models, I also always try to explain. Like if you're getting paid, you don't necessarily get photos. Sometimes they share, but anyways, because of that, I, don't usually post photos from those shoots necessarily. So I feel like people sometimes question if I'm still modeling because I don't post as much on social media when I am busy doing that a lot. Like I model a lot more than I share on social media, I'm doing it quite a bit. And honestly, I love it. It's a lot of, I work with photographers like again and again and again, the ones that kind of start with me when they're just starting out, because it's a good experience. And I've done shooting and how to work with a model and angles and all of that. But I've also done Lightroom, teaching them how to
Oh my God.
Edit photos in a particular way. Yeah, it's been good. So I'm right now I really need to get that all kind of distilled and put up on my website. I need to share more information on that, because right now it's just kind of been word of mouth and just by chance. But yeah, I'm looking into getting that more
Cool.
Narrowed down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice too. Anytime that I've worked with a newer photographer that wanted my feedback about how the lighting was coming out or the composition or anything, I guess, I like it when people ask about my feedback, but I wouldn't want to give feedback without them asking for it, just because I've had some people react negatively to that. But I think it's great that you have what sounds like to be a good amount of people that come to you for this kind of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. It's only if they're open to it and ask for it. I wouldn't force it on anyone, but it's really cool and kind of rewarding on both ends. I remember when I first started with photography, I actually worked with another model who was very specific about the way she liked to be shot. And this was I think my first photo shoot with an actual model. And I was really just learning my camera and everything. And I remember she kept telling me exactly where to be and wouldn't let me shoot in other ways that I was curious about. And I remember not really enjoying it actually, and thinking there wasn't enough space for me to learn on my own. So I try to find a happy medium when I'm working with new photographers to let them explore angles and stuff on their own. But then, after looking in the camera, explaining why one angle looks better to me for my preferences versus another.
Yeah, that makes
But letting them try both,
Yeah, don't restrict people from their ideas, but then show them I don't know, if you're shooting down onto me, I'm gonna look short, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I feel there's a lot of photographers that listen to this podcast, and I think a handful that are wanting to be photographers that are nervous about it or whatever. And I think most of us experienced models, most of us are nice and willing to work with people as long as your intentions are to create nice photos and not something else that's a different motivation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why, I mean, the biggest thing would be just reach out, try it, like, yeah, communicate. Don't be afraid to reach out to experienced models. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of us are definitely open to working with. And it feels good too. It feels like you're helping a photographer like go out into the world and be better when working with, naked women too. Like it's also about like teaching, how to help someone adjust their pose without touching them, or you know what I mean? Like so much goes into it.
Yeah, I guess people have suggested like, oh, you should teach classes or something like that. And to me, I'm just like, yeah, but all this, I think in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, but it's obvious, right? Like the etiquette, to me, it seems like obvious, but that's just for me. I've done so many shoots, but a lot of stuff is not obvious to a lot of people.
It's really not.
Yeah.
We should team up. Let's teach a class in the studio.
That would be so fun. I'd be so down.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Photographer whisperers.
Yes, seriously. We can demonstrate how to work with a model.
Has a photographer ever like worked with you for the first time and said that they were intimidated to contact you?
Yes, I've heard that actually a lot of times. And I'm like, really? Like, you know me, I'm not like intimidating at all. But yes, it's like, I feel like a lot of photographers feel like their work has to be at a certain level before reaching out. And of course, yes, I do want to work with, I like creating good work, obviously, but for me, good work is mostly about the intention. You know what I mean? Like it's about the story behind the photo. Like for me, good work is like has a story to it versus like, just girl standing in lingerie or nude. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of stuff. So like all the other stuff can be learned. Like you can get better at photography, you can get better at lighting, you can get better at all that. But honestly, hiring a professional model is a huge step in that direction. Like we can help. We're here to help.
Yes. If people are open to listening to our feedback, then absolutely, totally. But the intimidating thing though, like, because like you feel like you're the same person that you were when you first started modeling. You don't feel like you're any better or worse as a human being or whatever. So then after a while, people start to view you as intimidating, but you're like, why did I say something that made me appear intimidating? But what I think is that because you have so many images of yourself online and you're like a brand now, that people, they're like, well, I'm not, all over the internet and I'm not a brand. So they're just automatically comparing themselves in some kind of aspect, and it intimidates them, I guess.
I know. I feel like sometimes like photographers are going into it trying to create something for you, like for you to share. And it's like, I don't need more photos, to be honest. Like create for yourself, like help me create for you. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I feel like they want to, like the goal is to like get a photo that I would share on my Instagram, when honestly, like I have such a backlog of photos and I forget to post on Instagram all the time. Like it's like, don't make that be your goal.
Is
like create work.
Yeah. This is an important topic because I have had very unfortunate experiences with people who were getting into photography and they did not tell me that they wanted to learn something new or that they wanted my feedback, but we did a shoot and then later on they're like, oh, how come you're not posting any of the photos? And it's not that the photos aren't good, it's just that it's not necessarily something that I would post for whatever reason. And their feelings get hurt sometimes, which, that makes me feel bad, but like, I feel like if you're hiring a model and you want them to post the photos, you should tell them that. And then the model and you can work together to come up with something that the model also wants to put on social media.
For sure. I make it pretty clear that I'm like probably not going to post things a lot of the time. I I don't ever want that to be an expectation. Yeah. And in return, I also never expect photos if I'm being paid. I only expect photos if it's a trade,
Yeah.
Which very rare. But yeah, I won't do it. I'm also like, I care about how my page looks like as a whole. So I also don't accept like collaboration posts and stuff because I care about like the colors and stuff. And anyway. Yeah, I've heard though more and more that photographers are wanting that, and I'm like, stop doing that. Like, just worry about your content and let me help you make the best.
Yeah, and I mean, I
also don't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've never I don't lean in very much into like the brand thing. I've always thought like I do have like the way, obviously I present on my pages and stuff like my portfolio, but when I'm being hired, like I do think about like I am here to model and kind of like take on the character to help serve the work that the photographer wants. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I'm trying to help your portfolio. That's why you're paying me,
Yes. And then the ball is in their park on what they want to create, So
totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I can help.
Yeah. I think that there are some times where if their intentions are not to create something, but to get validation from the model by posting anything that they might have shot, I think it comes down to like, what are the intentions? Like, I think some people don't realize that their intentions might not really be creating photos, that it might be more seeking validation.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is a very different thing. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Benny. Well, we've had a really good chat. I'm really happy that we had to get a chance to do this episode. And so I'll be in touch with you soon about getting an image to share for the thumbnail of the podcast.
Awesome.